call to order the regular meeting for April 19th, 2016. We all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Larry Armstrong, Jacqueline Asbill.
Here.
Sean Douglas. Here. Michelle Hayes.
Here.
Kelly Tromba.
Okay, can I get approval of the agenda, please?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Jacqueline Asbill.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
And can I get an approval for the minutes from the regular meeting from March 1st, 2016?
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbill.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
Okay, and approval for the minutes from the regular meeting from March 15th, 2016? So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbill.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
And
Vote is 3-0.
the minutes from the special meeting from March 21st, 2016.
So moved.
I'll second. And roll call.
Jacqueline Asbill.
Yes.
Sean Douglas.
Yes.
Michelle Hayes.
Yes.
Vote is 3-0.
Okay, we are on to board member reports. And just recently, we have lost a few people from the Madison school family. It's always sad to learn of someone's passing, especially when it is a member of our Madison family. The past month, we lost two members of our community. Janice Cassidy was a beloved elementary teacher for 27 years in our district, first at Homer Nash Kimball Elementary School and then North Elementary School. Janice loved life and was best described as everyone's best friend. While she worked hard at being a great teacher, she loved being a mother and a wife, and also took great pleasure in spending time with her siblings and parents. Janice took every opportunity to let people know that making memories in life is what is important. She lived that motto well, and she will be missed. Also, Larry Bapty was a guidance counselor at Madison High School in the 90s until the mid-2000s. Larry had a big heart and plenty of words of wisdom to share. His depth of experience from his political life in Chardon to his role as firefighter and paramedic is a shining example of the fulfilled life he led. He did so much each and every day and did so with greatest of joy. His love of his family was evident in all he did, and his happiest moments are each time he became a grandpa. He also loved his schnauzers, and sharing his love of dogs gave him much happiness. Both of these fine people touched many lives in our Madison family. Their loss is felt by many, and they will be greatly missed. May we now take a moment of silence for Janice Cassidy and Larry Bapty. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to report this evening?
I would just like to share that I spent time, obviously, working with both of these people. Janice was MEA president, so I got to know her really well through that work. And, you know, as a kindergarten teacher through our work in curriculum and looking at, you know, my first year as a curriculum director of the committee, getting them a curriculum in kindergarten, and you know, I just enjoyed working with her so very, very much, and she'll be missed. And Larry was the counselor I worked with at the high school. And, you know, we had a great time together. We were kind of like the tag team. Sometimes he played good cop, I'd play bad cop. We'd go back and forth. But Larry was always a gentleman. And if he was ever in my office and a kid would talk disrespectful to me, he had to defend my honor. Don't talk to a lady like that. I just have so many Larry memories because we spent a lot of time together in a lot of meetings, and he will be missed. And his, daughter-in-law is a teacher in our district. His son was a teacher in our district for several years before he went the other family business, firefighting. So, just a good family, solid people.
Okay, if we don't have any more board member reports, we can move on to the first public participation of the evening. This is available for any member of the public to address the board on agenda items only. There will be another public participation at the end where you can address us regarding any topic. Anyone? Okay. Moving on to reports and recommendations of the treasurer.
Thank you. I have one item I'd like to discuss that is not on the agenda tonight. It will appear on the agenda on May 3rd, but that's when our first board meeting is. Typically, I present the 5-year forecast, the May update at the 2 meetings in May, but since we are probably not having the second meeting, I've moved it to second meeting in April and first meeting in May for approval. The 5-year forecast, the form itself is dictated by the Ohio Department of Education, and it is required to be submitted in October and again in May of the fiscal years. This forecast, I have updated it, and the very last page gives you the reasons for the revision, not the least of which it's required. But I've adjusted for revenue based on where we see things so far this year. And I haven't gone and adjusted every single line item for the May update. I adjust those items that are significant. The first is I've increased open enrollment revenue, not only for, this year it will be over what we budgeted. I haven't touched the fiscal year 2016 forecast numbers. Those are remaining the same. What gets affected in this revision is 17, 18, and 19, so 4 years out. So I adjusted the open enrollment revenue because it's $150,000 than we anticipated. We got a good influx of kids this year. So that's increased not only in 17, it's also 18, 19, and 20. So the net on the bottom line is a $600,000 increase. I also decreased one of the revenue line items for the anticipated reduction in catastrophic costs. They have continually underfunded the line item. The last 2 years they got a little closer, putting $100 million and $150 million into the budget statewide. So that got us closer to half of what we were owed. The budget this year is $40 million, so we're going to get 10% of what they owe us. So I've decided I've just got to make that adjustment, and unless they change the budget in the future year, the statewide budget, we're just going to anticipate getting very little back. Last year we got $500,000, $600,000 back. We're not going to get anywhere near that since they decreased the budget.
And that, for everyone here, that's the catastrophic costs are associated with the special education reimbursement that we were supposed to be receiving from the state, that we have been collecting at half or less than half.
Yeah, real quick, it's anytime you spend, in rough numbers, over $27,000 on one student, you take that excess amount, you split it in half. They're supposed to give you half plus the other half times the state share, which for us, they should be reimbursing 75% over that $27,000 figure. We get about 30% of that number. That was the last 2 years. This year, I'm guessing we'll get close to 10% of what they owe us. So 90% of what the state owes us, they just don't give us. The good news, and I think Angela shared it with you a couple weeks ago, we're members of the Lake County Schools Council Healthcare Consortium, and for a number of years we've had really good experience. Last year was a horrible year, and our rates reflected that. So in my forecast prior to this, I had a 10% or a 9% increase this year, 10% for every year. The current year that we're in allowed us to set our rates going into next year at 4%. So there's 6% this year that we don't have to spend, and then it kind of compounds. I have left the future years for healthcare at 10% just because you don't know what's going to happen. So that we'll take a look at usually every year in May, that's one of the big adjustments. So decreased it from a 9% increase next year down to 4%. A few years ago, we were clipping along for community schools at about $400,000, and I came to the board and said, all of a sudden, $700,000? Well, we're back down much lower than that. So I've reduced the budget and the forecast for a more accurate number to what we currently see in community schools. I know the administration did a good job trying to figure out why we lost so many kids, and it must have worked, because we're saving $150,000 a year on community schools from that one year when it was topped out at $700,000. And then the second, I noticed the transfers out and the advances out were reversed. Same net dollars, they were just on the wrong line items. So in a nutshell, we went from the forecast presented in October and approved by the board, and which is the current one sitting out on the web at the Ohio Department of Education and our website. We actually looked to increase our bottom line this year by about $150,000, which increases the bottom line next year from $209,000 up to $654,000. And in the bottom, the last number of the forecast is a negative $4.6 million. If you recall, 5 years ago, before we started the massive cuts, the number this year, I believe, or next year, should have been a negative $10 million. We're in the black for next year. And instead of $1 million in the hole or $1.1 million in the hole in fiscal year 17, we're a mere $373,000. Now, still a big number, but this is the healthiest we've been in years financially. Yet we're still have the possibility of being $4.7 million in the hole. So we're going to keep doing what we've been doing, balancing the budget, making things work with the limited staff, controlling every expense that we can. It looks like we can make it another year. So as you read through the assumptions, because that is an important part of the 5-year forecast, and you have any questions between now and the next meeting, feel free to give me a call, and I should be able to answer any question you have. If there's no further questions on that, I have 2 items on the agenda for approval. The first is to approve the financial reports for all funds, fund-to-fund transfer report, and the check payment register for March 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Roll call?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbill,
Yes.
vote is 3-0. And the second is to accept a generous donation of $35 from Lillian Hupertz, to Madison High School Key Club to be used for activities.
So moved.
I'll second.
Questions or comments?
Thank you to Mrs. Huberts.
I definitely second that. Roll call?
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbill,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
the vote is 3-0. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Okay, report to the administrative team.
Okay, well, I have a couple things, and the first thing we're going to start out with this evening is our presentation. I have Detective Tim Doyle here from Madison Township Police Department, and
Agent Bagley from Lake County Narcotics.
right, and Chief Shannon is here, as well as some of our administrative team, to continue the dialogue that was started at the March 30th forum at the fire station on the heroin epidemic that is looming not only in Lake County, but this entire region. And Detective Doyle would like to share with you an outline of some of the things that he would like to see in a curriculum that he wants to help promote with our teachers in our schools.
This is just a rough outline that we put together, but together with Lake County Narcotics, they have more funds available to put together a nice PowerPoint presentation. I'd like to see the presentation go along the lines of a deterrent. So it's not geared more to the effects, the physiological effects on the human body or any of that. It's more of a deterrent. This is what it does. This is bad. Stay away from it. We'll take them down the path of a typical heroin user. We see it a lot in our community. We deal with it a lot in our community. We would like to, if at all possible, during the presentation, it would be provided to, we're hoping, two classes, age appropriate, either 7th, 8th grade, and at the high school level, senior class. We'd like to, at the time we get it, maybe check an inmate out of the jail that is a heroin addict or not meth addict, and bring them to the class and answer questions students may have, so they see in real life what happens. Any questions you guys may have?
Would you, the format for this type of education, would you see it being just a one-time seminar? Do you see it being, a 3-week course? What do you see it being?
That'd be more up to you guys. I would like to see it in small classes, health classes. Once you get a big group of kids together, it doesn't hit quite as home as if you have a classroom size. So whatever it takes to get through that, the high school level and at the 7th grade level, I don't know if it's a week long or how many classes, health classes, you perform in a day, if we could knock it out in a day or a couple days. As long as you guys determine that you want the program to run for every year, in a couple of years, we can tweak it here and there. Get the kids interested in and see what drugs pop up as, of course, as the years go by. Heroin hit pretty hard here. It first started with cocaine about, I'd say, 10 years ago out here, 12 years ago. Then it went to meth. And meth is just huge. Oh, hang on, back that up. About 20 years ago. And then 10 years ago, it started meth. It became really huge. Meth is still a huge thing in this area, but now we have heroin with the meth. And they kind of, out here, you see it more predominantly that the heroin and meth go hand in hand. The heroin users need their money, so they end up buying, a lot of times, buying ephedrine-based products from the stores, pseudoephedrine, things like that, where they'll get $50 a box to go in and buy one box. And so they'll get their fix of heroin, and then the meth clerks get their pseudoephedrine boxes. So we see a lot of that. To make kids aware, if anybody approaches you and asks you to buy pseudoephedrine and that, a lot of kids right out don't think anything of it, but it's a crime. It's a felony. So enlighten them on those points. Everything is more or less associated with heroin and meth.
Have you already developed this? Is this something that you have already used in other schools, or are you guys looking to develop something brand new?
He has a presentation already, but modifying it, brand new PowerPoint presentation, more, as I said, more geared to the lines of the kids. The kids, I think, would lose interest right away. You tell them what the effects are on the brain and on the body. They'll roll their eyes. If you go into 40 minutes of that, where you show them this is what you look like after 20 years, or a period of time, not 20 years. A couple years on meth, a couple years on heroin. This is what is going to happen to you. Your teeth are going to rot out. I'll show them pictures before and after. You're eventually, if you go down the heroin path, eventually you are going to end up stealing from your parents. You're eventually going to steal from other people. You're eventually going to commit crimes to support your habit. It's just known. That's what happens. Point that out to them. More along that path. It would be geared to.
In our area, obviously, from what you're saying, you see a lot of people stealing, to get the money to pay for these drugs. In our area, do you see much trafficking to get the money to pay for those drugs?
There are, obviously, there's people that traffic in this area.
I'm actually more asking like towards human trafficking.
Human trafficking
Yeah.
people?
Do you see or a lot of prostitution to pay for those drugs?
Yeah, I don't see a lot. There's some that's out there. Human trafficking, I guess you can put in the human trafficking into the lines of prostitution, because once they're addicted to it, they're vulnerable to whoever is pushing them to do it. So it's out there. We're not blind to it. We go through a lot of training. The state of Ohio mandates courses that we take, especially for that. But this area, yeah, I'm sure that Painesville and inner city Cleveland has a lot more than we do, percent-wise.
And then I notice on this list, have you thought about including for them also the resources of where to get help if necessary?
This is a rough outline. We could implement that, but once again, I wanted ours presentation to be, stay away from it to begin with. You don't have that problem.
Sure.
And hopefully, fear is a good factor, and show them what happens, and how life isn't good when you're on this stuff, and keep away.
I'd like to see maybe, pardon me, one of your guidance counselors, maybe especially trained or get a little extra training, so that the kids, if they know they have a problem at home, or their friends are involved in whatever, or they've witnessed some drug activity, or they themselves are starting to become addicted, that they can go to a certain person in your school who has some training, who could either steer them towards some law enforcement or rehab sources too. So it would be like a good partnership, I think, between us and you folks.
I think we have our SROs in each building, and I think that's usually a role that is fulfilled by the SROs, but I guess it just depends on what kind of relationship that SRO has established with kids in the building, whether or not they'd be good with that.
I think there comes a time when every person that uses heroin that they want help. At some point, whether we're involved or their parents, at some point they want to get off it and they just can't. They're too addicted. So to turn to somebody, that would be good. The guidance counselor, and sometimes they fear police, that they can't do that. They're afraid of being arrested or whatever. But in the schools, if there's somebody that's set up, that they can go to.
Because one thing that I've seen over the last 10 years is the age of first-time heroin users or abusers of pharmaceutical drugs. That age is slowly dropping every year. I mean, it's realistic to say that 7th and 8th graders, 6th graders are at risk for actually becoming a heroin user. I see that quite a bit, that the age, it's not people in their 40s or 30s or whatever. It is school kids that are actually using heroin. They're actually sticking a needle in their arm. And it starts with pharmaceutical drugs. That's where most of my background comes from, is pharmaceutical diversion. So I'd like to incorporate that into this program also.
Do we think
That's
7th and
a key
8th grade
thing.
is, do we think 7th and 8th grade is a young enough starting point then, or do you think we should have something maybe in 5th grade and 8th grade and then the high school?
The youngest person I've ever come in contact with was 9 years old, who, a female, who went to mom and dad's medicine cabinet, took some pills. She didn't know what they were. She didn't really know what she was doing, but she knew she could get money for these things. And at 9 years old, she's a felony drug trafficker. So I think that would be a decision, for you folks to make. But
We do see kids in the school, not so much heroin, but a lot of prescription drugs. Sharing prescription drugs, that we see a lot. And that has to get out there. When they're issued that 10 or 15-day supply of Percocet, Vicodin, Oxycontin because they broke their leg or whatever. First off, you don't need that much. The pain after a few days is God's way of telling you don't do that. And the state's also turning away from that. They're realize that's a problem with the doctors. And that was actually brought up at one of the state's meetings. That 10-day supply, if you use it, then we have after you're done with it, we have a drop-off of the police department where they can drop off what's left over, and push it to them that, you selling this or you giving it to your friend is a felony. You get in a lot of trouble for that, especially on school property. So we can try to send that home a little bit better, because I've seen kids think nothing of it, just giving their friends their prescription.
What else have you come across that you think would be beneficial for us to know?
it is actually an epidemic. I prefer to call it an opiate epidemic, not just heroin, but as we've been talking about here, pharmaceutical drugs, the pharmaceutical painkillers, any of the opiate-based drugs, a lot of what are called benzodiazepines, the sedatives, or antidepressants are being prescribed, and those are very popular. Xanax is, it's far down on the schedule of controlled drugs, which is the propensity for abuse or addiction, but very popular drug among kids, young adults. Many traffic accidents and just falling down and getting hurt are attributed to the abuse of antidepressants. So it's, and I know Tim agrees with me, we'd like to show this progression that all people make from prescription drugs to heroin, how if a person is addicted to heroin, they're addicted to pharmaceutical drugs, and vice versa. If they can't get one, they get the other. They hit the same pain receptors in the body. And so I think we'd like to take it in a direction there, because all this stuff is at home. All this stuff is in mom and dad's, grandma's medicine cabinet. And statistically, young people, their first half a dozen times that they experiment with pharmaceutical drugs is for free. They either find it on their own in their own home, or they're given it by their friends at school, social gatherings or whatever it might be. So very important to get that message out there too, that this stuff that's safe, that has little negative social stigma, is very dangerous. And this is the path that you're going to follow to an addiction.
Now, so that I can understand, because when we talk about like the Percocet, the Oxycontin, the Vicodin, are they just taking it and taking more than the prescribed amount, and that's how they get addicted, or are they doing something else with it?
Well, even a prescribed amount, they can become addicted. And eventually, once they get enough in them, they want more. and they get addicted. There's personalities, addictive personalities, there's people that feel good on it, so they keep taking it. And as they keep taking it, these Percocets, Oxycontin, Vicodin, they're synthetic heroin. So they'll become addicted to it. Certain personalities, and depending on the strength and the amount of time, there's people that are on this, for back problems, it's easy to get a prescription.
And
Or it
then-
was a lot easier a few years ago to get a prescription. You went in there, your back hurt, they're giving you Oxycontin. You take it for a while, kid sees it in the shelf at home or whatever, he takes it. Or if parents said, the kid's complaining that he hurt his ankle, the parent will give him one. Not expecting. Kid likes the effects, they keep taking it. You start growing addicted to it. Next thing you know, you're shopping for those. Those get kind of expensive. You find the heroin is cheaper, easier to get, better high, especially when you shoot it.
And so just, for me and for other parents to know, if your child gets injured, is it all pain medication that can lead to this, or is there?
These are the big ones that we find on the street. Aspirin works the best.
If you try.
I don't ever hurt anyone.
Right, I don't hear anybody with that. But these are the ones we find, you can buy them for, anywhere from $5 a pill, depending on what it is, up to $30 a pill. That's what they go for.
Last year I attended Operation Street Smart. They had it at the East Lake Radisson Hotel, sponsored by the Adams Board. And that was eye-opening. I mean, they had it for mental health professionals and for people in the community. But just as a parent, I mean, one of the things they really did was shows you all of these different ways that kids hide drugs now, whether they're, prescriptions or whether they're illegal drugs you buy in the street. Do you think that would be something that would be helpful for our community, for parents to be invited to a presentation like that? I mean, those guys have this down. I mean, they've done this all over, especially Ohio. They're law enforcement officers that present it, so that it's really sort of a broken down for the regular person,
How many parents do you think would attend that?
I'm not sure.
So you think the ones that attended would be the ones that kids have the problem? Okay. The ones that typically have the problems you won't see here, you won't hear in the school unless you call them for a problem. But usually you won't hear anything from them. We know what to look for. And the parents that do have a problem usually will give us a call and say, hey, I found this, or this is, we can give a presentation, but I don't think it's not going to be well attended. It's going to be something probably along the lines of what was at the fire department.
I think Riverside and Chardon have brought in, I don't know if it's Operation Street Smart or not, it's a thing where parents can learn to look, they actually set up a room, what a typical teenager's room is like, and look for troubled signs within that room. And I know it's, I think, out of Copley, somewhere in Summit County, that has taken this show on the road. And it's been pretty well attended, I think. I know in Riverside it was pretty well attended. They really pumped up the information to get it out. And I think Chardon's was either this week or next week.
It might even be a good idea. If you decide to implement this program, maybe we could give a presentation first to parents. And then, this is what junior's going to be learning through the year. And at home, that could open up some discussion. The parents could talk intelligently, so to speak, about, what their kids are going to hear about. I think that'd probably be a good idea. As Tim said, and everything starts at home. It's the parents. And obviously, the more troubled kids obviously come from a home where the parents don't care, and they're not going to come to this meeting. But there are good kids. There are straight A students. There are kids who never get in trouble who get into heroin. I mean, it happens all the time. So I think it would be nice for the parents to see what we're going to be teaching. And then, like I said, they could have some communication back and forth. about these problems?
This is just a thought, and it might be chaotic because there would be so many people there, but everybody comes to middle school orientation. That might be a time to set something like that up because everyone's there. Whereas if we do it, on a high school conference day, a lot of parents don't come to conferences. A lot of, if you're doing it on a basketball night, you only get a certain segment of kids. If you're doing it on a band concert night, you're only getting a certain segment of kids. But everybody comes to middle school orientation.
Certainly the age group where we can start worrying about it.
Yeah.
6th grade.
Tim, in our community, would you say you see a fair amount of activity in the school-age kids as opposed to the adults? And a lot of the things that we're seeing on the news are not school-age kids, but I don't know if that's because of privacy laws and that sort of thing, or if it's because around here, the age is just a little bit older.
I believe the age is a little bit older. I think that the sharing of pills you see in the high school. For methamphetamines and heroin, it's a little bit older. There's kids in the high school that know all about that. Either their parents or friends, or they're aware of, people, especially places up north and some of the trailer parks where it's more predominant. They know the process. They know what to look for. They know the use of it. I don't see it. I don't see the heroin. There's probably a few, but nothing that's really crossed our radar. With the meth stuff, we see a little bit more. We try to stay on top of that.
I think the kids tend to fly under the radar, especially if they're taking medications out of the family medicine cabinet. Parents, they're not going to involve the police. So I think 90% of it goes unreported. They take care of it in-house. And they probably aren't going to do a real good job because they don't understand that, here's the progression and it's starting now. Junior is sneaking Percocet, pardon me, out of your bottle. That's a drug problem. And if he's giving it away, that's considered a sale in the state of Ohio. That's a felony. So, yes, felony drug trafficking. So, I think we don't see it because, they fly under the radar and it's taken care of at home. So I think it would be a real great program to start at this age.
Now, when you discuss with these kids about that it's a felony, will you be discussing with them what the effects of a felony means?
Yeah.
That all the way through their life, that, they might not be able to vote, they might not be able to go into the military. I mean, it could just follow them forever and have, okay.
Yeah, part of the program too. Got some visual aids at what happens down the road. What you'll lose besides ultimately your life.
How do you guys feel about random drug testing? And do you think that it's a good deterrent? Have you seen other districts do it? Do you think that there's a place for it in a school district like ours or not?
It's always a controversial subject.
It is
I'll give you
controversial.
that.
Tim's got something he wants
And
to
if
say.
we weren't already,
If you're a government
we wouldn't talk about it
assistant,
at all.
then you should be drug tested.
I'm sorry?
So if you're getting government assistance, then you should be drug tested.
Right.
If it affects the schools, the kids.
No, I'm talking about the students, not for any type of government assistance. I'm talking about the programs of, some more private schools do it, but they're implementing a random drug testing in the school system. Never really we've talked about it off and on, about considering looking into it maybe at some point in time, never really that seriously. When you're talking about, alcohol or marijuana or those sorts of things, now that we're talking about heroin and things that will ruin the rest of your life, your lives, we're actively seeking ways to give kids reasons not to, and deterrence, and to identify kids that may need help really early on to save their life. Not necessarily for punitive reasons, just for life-saving reasons.
The drug testing going to be for sports?
Well, right now, in the state of Ohio, it can only be students who have some sort of, I don't know exactly what the verbiage they use. It can't just be for any student. It has to be a student that either parks on school property, is involved in an extracurricular or sport or something extra. It can't just be the bare minimum going to school. They have to be involved in, they have to have some sort of other connection to the school or the school property. And we haven't discussed it as a board doing it or anything. It's been at the school board conferences. They've presented it to us every year for the past probably 5 years. We always walk away saying, yeah, I don't know if we really need that at Madison. And I'm just starting to wonder if it wouldn't save a life or two.
I think, when you hit those kids that are on the fence, should I experiment, should I not? Or, they're at a party or a social gathering, and they're like, should I succumb to this peer pressure or not? I think, if they have it in the back of their mind, then, boy, I could be drug tested on Monday. And wouldn't that be terrible? So I think it's a great idea. I just have no idea what it would take to get a program like that started. But I think it would.
Yeah, there's companies and people that'll come in and do it. Obviously there's a whole lot of other conversations that we need to have, that would need to happen, and community input and all of that kind of stuff. All I know is that it could only be random for the kids who had extra things, or parents of students who don't drive to school and aren't participating in anything. They can opt to sign a paper to have their kids put in the form. So parents can put them in.
I think it's a can of worms. Because then you got your funding, how you receive state funding for it? Is it going to come out of the school district funding?
It's not nearly as expensive as it used to be. And the only reason that I know is, like I said, we go to the school board conference and they present us with all this information. So we are not even anywhere near down the path of discussing it and all of the options and the how-tos and that kind of stuff. I was just looking more for input of whether or not, if it would work, and if the community supported it, do you think it'd be helpful? Because if it's not going to be helpful, then there's probably no point in having the conversation,
Any program like that that's run right can be helpful. I mean, it's just one more thing that would deter kids off of it, off drugs, if they're on it or if they're on the fence. So if any of that type of program run right could have positive effects.
Now,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
This is just off the top of my head. You could maybe run a volunteer program where kids can sign up. I don't know at what age this would start, but every month they volunteer to take a drug test. And if they test, every month for, the 7-8 months, whatever the school runs, they get some kind of reward for that. And I think the longer you can keep a kid off drugs from experimenting, they start to learn that habit as they get older and older. Maybe something like that to start. I don't know.
My other question, might be a really dumb question, but the drug dogs that they have access to, they can come to the school, would they hit on prescription drugs?
They can if they're trained.
Are the ones that we have access to trained for that?
I don't know.
My concern is, and I've never really understood why this is, so maybe you could tell me, why is it that we only do the hallways and the lockers and we don't actually go into the actual classrooms where the children and students are? Because those kids are going to keep the drugs on them.
I think it's, and I'm not positive, but I believe it's state law that a drug dog is not allowed to go to a person. I don't know if it's state law or state policy or the dog handlers policies, or the police department's policies, but
I'm pretty sure it's you don't have reasonable suspicion to have them go into the classroom.
they don't, even on
It's a-
traffic stops,
yeah.
we don't run a dog around a person.
And even though our standard is less, we don't have any reason to have them go into every classroom and then randomly, hit on a student or a student book bag. You have to have at least
It's a probable cause.
probable cause, a
Listening to
reasonable
the
suspicion.
officer
of something,
yesterday, he
yeah.
really
For
harped
schools.
on probable cause, so to go in and just pick a kid and have the dog search him, you wouldn't, unless you have,
Sure.
some reason.
So let me ask another question. Is it acceptable to make all of those students leave the room, but leave their book bags behind and let the dog go in?
I think that's personal property. Book bags in the locker, it's in school property. So the car is on school property. The locker is school property. When you go, you take it to another level, it's personal property. And they don't have a right to just search. I mean, we can't go up to any kid and say, I want to search your bag. If a kid gives us a tip, then we go, we need to search your bag, we have reason to believe that there's something that shouldn't be in there. I mean, I once did have a student in my office as an assistant principal with a female officer because she had it inside her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I would just be more interested in having the drug dog around more frequently, just as a deterrent. Don't bring it in our school. We don't want your drugs in our school, don't bring it in our school. If you bring it in the
I
school, the
agree.
drug dog is gonna be here, so keep it out of our schools. I don't know how frequently we can have access to the drug dogs. Maybe that's something we can talk about offline, anything we can to deter it, keep it out of our schools. The next thing that, we need to be concerned about though, and this kind of broaches that line of what's the school's business and what's not, but, we have kids that come in the classroom every day and they aren't heroin users, they're little kids. But their mom or dad or both are addicted to heroin. And trying to identify who these kids are, just to make sure that, they get the extra attention, make sure they have breakfast, make sure they, someone else is keeping an extra eye on these kids, because we see the path their parents are going down, and hopefully they're able to get some help and, get their lives back on track. But if not, or until then, it would be really helpful if the school would know who these kids are, so that, they can kind of have some wraparound support for them. I don't know how we get around the HIPAA laws in obtaining information about, if there's an adult that has a drug problem that the police are aware of, that has children in our school system, how we can get access to that information to identify them, to, try to get them more support. That's something we can think about. I don't know the answer to that. But I know it's an issue. I know we have multiple children in our district right now who have parents, siblings, if not parents also. They're living in homes with drugs in them. What's their life going to be like if no one steps in?
And then I think one of the things that the governor's office has done is there is this Start Talking program, and the first level in that Start Talking program is the classroom teacher, because they have the direct contact with these kids each and every day, and giving them the tools to have those conversations, because they're aware. I think Shannon can attest to that our elementary teachers are pretty attuned to who some of those kids are and what some of those issues are, and how we do provide quite a bit of wraparound support.
So the HIPAA law would cover the person's identity and their issue. Does it cover addresses?
Well, HIPAA protects healthcare information. It doesn't have any jurisdiction over drug use in the home. that wouldn't be a HIPAA issue.
I was thinking the
actually.
people that, it came up because we were thinking of all the people who were ODing, and there was that one week where we had multiple OD calls, and many of those had Madison children living in those homes.
As far as that, Tim's dealt with it. When we go to a call, whether it's drugs, even if we arrest somebody for a warrant at a residence and there's children in that home, Lake County Family Services is contacted and they come in and do what they can. I don't know if there's a way to work with family services and the schools to say, hey, maybe we can help these kids, but you don't want to label those kids either. You have to be careful with that. But as far as working with, when you have heroin overdose, if there's kids there, we do contact Lake County Family Services.
We set up a safety plan. Usually they set up the safety
Yeah,
plan.
they set up the safety plan for these children.
And if the Children's Services is working with the family, then a release comes to us and
Oh,
then we
does it?
know. I
Okay.
mean, we don't know why they're initially involved, but we know they're involved with the family.
Okay, but that's helpful.
Have accesses.
It's a huge epidemic. The school's not, the school alone, police department, government agencies, nothing's solving it. Put a little dent in it, and it's going to be eventually up to the parents and up to the individual.
I think what was most telling at that March 30th meeting, the number of hands when asked the question, how many of you have had some impact by heroin in your life, whether direct or indirect. So many hands, the majority of the hands went up in that room. I mean, it's a huge, huge epidemic.
I have another perspective back to the class you was talking about. When I first came in the late 90s, in fact, I was thinking, Jacqueline, when you were probably in school, we used to have a drug alcohol counselor.
For the 90s, Bill. don't
The
you-
what?
The early 90s.
90s, but they were still in place when I came, and it was Frank Heibach.
Oh, hi, Bob.
Yeah, Heibach, and then
Yeah,
Steve
that's
Perkins
good.
had it, and then the funds dried up, and then when you were talking about parents, and actually it's still part of our discipline code. If a student gets in trouble, they can reduce the suspension by going to some type of counseling. And honestly, in the last 5 to 10 years, those avenues have really dried up. Crossroads is so overbooked, all that it's hard for them to find anybody. This class would be a good option. And it sort of struck me as they were presenting it, and that we would have it available that a student and a parent, in terms of trying to get some parents in, would have to go through a 3-hour program or something.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's something we've lost over the years.
Like in addition to a class that maybe we do with health or whatever, if we have a student that is getting in trouble, maybe there's some other sort of,
Yeah, any type of minor, it doesn't have to be like a
Yeah.
major, but, if they, as you were saying, you really want to deter it, so that first time or that second time, that's when you really want to have some type of impact, or, to get them to reflect and think about it, not when they're way on the deep end, it's
like
gonna
when my
be-
kid keeps on showing up to school late,
Yes, exactly. So, we
slow
will-
down, set her to 10.
Make her do a ride along with Tim Doyle there.
but honestly, that would be another option for that type of class. I think that would be wonderful to have that. But that also would tie the parent into it, because when we would meet, they would probably take that option to reduce suspension, and that sort of works on our behalf of some education and that type of thing.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. How would you see it fitting into the curriculum at the high school for this kind of class? Would you see it fitting in with the health classes, not only kids?
Well, definitely freshman health class, because every freshman would take it, and that's a pretty impressionable age, not that, that there's a lot of them that have been exposed to it. The problem we're having with the health class, I'm sure they cover stuff, but the state is just keeps, if you just saw the paper, it just required now AED training, because she was telling me that we got to buy this equipment for that. I mean, they have put a lot into that 9th grade health class. But this would definitely be an important component, and we bring in a number of other county agencies too. But no, I think seniors, I'm not sure how we would fit in the seniors.
Like more of a, I don't know what class or anything, but definitely the seniors before a lot of them go off to college.
Well, we had the speaker the other day, and David Answer heard it, he was Kevin Piazzi from the Ohio Investigative Unit with the Ohio State Patrol, undercover, basically. He was very good for the seniors. He captivated them for 50 minutes, but he did it in a way of just getting to their level, and he really talked a lot about their options when they go to college. He talked about the impact of the felony. He talked about, what's legal. That's why I said probable cause. That was one of his main things. I don't know how many times he said that. And the kids picked up on it right away. When they can search a car, when they can come into a party, and he just talked about St. Patrick's Day parade. They made 85 arrests that day alone, underage drinking, on the streets and that. Those were all
But not here.
good Catholic kids too, so you wouldn't have thought so.
I think though, because I think
You were there too.
when he says freshmen is an impressionable age, and I agree with you on that. But I also kind of agree with Tim where he says about seniors as well, because and certainly you're with them every day, but do you not see that these seniors just think they're larger than life? They just don't foresee bad things happening. And would it be beneficial to certainly have your speaker, but maybe have another
Sure.
one for reinforcement?
Yeah. You can't do too much. It affects, if you bring in something and it impacts 2 kids, it's worth that effort. And then another time, it impacts kids. I throw social media in there because that's where you really learn about how they think they're invincible. Social media is such a major issue.
And I don't know if there's any funds out there from the state. Obviously, the state is aware that heroin is an epidemic, and same with methamphetamines in a more rural area. They're putting on these big town hall meetings all over the state. I don't know if there's funds available through the schools saying, hey, that we're going to give classes, or a local police department is going to give classes for on the heroin epidemic. I don't know if there's, through the state, there's funds available for those type of education. You guys may not know what that's.
Did they say anything at the summit you went to?
Hey, what?
When you went to the summit in Columbus,
Yeah.
did they talk about that at all?
Not that, just that, they have a huge epidemic and they're throwing money at it.
I think it's shocking that freshmen are required to take AED training, and the likelihood that they'll ever, in the next 10 years of their life, have to work an AED machine versus deal with the issues we're talking about here. I mean, AED training is wonderful. I mean,
Right,
it's great.
right.
But comparatively with what we're talking about, the likelihood they're going to have to deal with some type of enticement or issues with meth or heroin, that's shocking.
Right. Well, the principal's getting a lot older, so I want them all to have it.
The ball
I hope I don't.
I could use it.
I hope I don't.
Well, we have to bring the whole cover.
On the job training.
That's an authentic assessment.
Any other questions?
I don't have any. Thank you so much for coming and for doing this research and for putting this together for us. Thank you very, very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next part of my report is our strategic plan. We have finally gotten to a point in all the conversation and all the numerous drafts that have been out there that for me, it's actually starting to solidify and make sense. Because we were at a point last week where we talked to so many people and we had all those sheets of paper. Dion was great for the start of the process, but we had to get it into a form where we could actually look at it and review it. And we were able to do that with the help of one of the focus groups, when Bob Dyack from the Y came and said, what, because we kept saying, well, I think we need more action steps. And he said, no, that's the details under the action steps the committees work out. You've got every piece you need there. And so we talked about it, and I said to Susan, I said, I think I see how this has to flow now. So if you look, that we have 4 main areas, or 5 main areas in the plan. We have curriculum instruction, collaboration and communication, finance, facilities and technology, and safety. And then under each of those pieces are various objectives. Attached to each main area is the goal. And what we tried to do is timeline each of these overarching goals with how we were going to do it. And I see this as a 5-year plan with checkpoints along the way, and then at the end of those 5 years reviewing to see where we're at, and then seeing if you need, to refine or update goals as needed. So curriculum instruction, I think it has to annually be reviewed because, one, there are so many changes from the state and so many different requirements that we have to keep track of, like AED training. That was the first I heard that one. So, different things that we have to do there. And then under that, we have 4 big overarching objectives that we talked about. So increasing the number of courses, including both college and career offerings provided to students, providing tools and resources to help students prepare for life beyond school, provide learning opportunities that meet the individual needs of all students, develop a plan for delivering professional development for teachers and staff, and then various steps underneath each of these main objectives. And I think Bob called them something else. Whatever the terminology, you can sort of see how they all connect back to that overarching goal under curriculum and instruction. And then different things that were important to various stakeholders under each of those objectives. And so one of the things we still have to do and have some conversation about, and I would give you this homework assignment, is some of these are things that we could do regardless of funds. Some of these things are going to take additional funds. And one of the things that came across very clear from every conversation I had with every focus group was we somehow have to show which one of these, whether we put dollar signs, use color to code it, but which ones are going to take additional funds to make those reality. And that's where we're at in this process. And then each of these overarching goals actually has almost, other than I think the collaboration and communication group, where we have to establish a committee, curriculum instruction has the district leadership team, the administrative team, and then ultimately the board as a part of that. The collaboration and communications, we need to develop and get that communications committee going, along with the administrative team, followed by the board, because you set the messaging. Finance, we work with the treasurer, the administrative team, the board, and then really when we're looking at a levy campaign, one of the things that came, and I'm not trying to read all of this bit by bit because we've gone over it in numerous meetings and I want you to have time to digest it, read it, and give me feedback. But we've talked about this over and over again, taking a lesson out of other organizations, especially the library, the Friends of the Library Play Group, the playbook. We need to have an organized levy committee that's ongoing, that it becomes a part of this culture, that we have several renewals. We have 3 different renewals that we do in the span of 3 different elections. We have the emergency renewal, right? We go to the permanent improvement levy, and then we do the financing district. Those are all 3 like right back to back. Regardless of whatever else we do, whatever else this board decides, we need to be on top of that so that when we're doing those campaigns, we're not raising money as well. And that needs to be outside of this group. It needs to be a separate entity, which we do have a separate checkbook. You know, there is a levy committee that has a separate checkbook, separate from the board. Facilities and technology, again, looking at a variety of things there. One of the things that has come up over and over again, which we added through some of the conversation, which is a change, is the feasibility of a bus maintenance facility. Because we really do need some place to dedicate repair to our buses at some point. Our fleet is older. We were lucky this year with a mild winter that working, our guys maintain our fleet. But with an older fleet and the amount of repairs and the severity of repairs, those bills tend to go up. I mean, we're making headway with the few new buses that we've bought, and we've got a plan, I think, going forward, hopefully to get a couple more new buses. But we need to provide the appropriate space so that we can work on our buses and we don't have to send as much work out so that we have two different bays. The safety measures are some of the things we talked about here tonight. And there was one other thing I really wanted to highlight through one of the conversations was that we need to revitalize our Madison Education Foundation. We had a very active foundation that gave grants to classrooms. Well, there's other ways to tap resources too, that there are people that want to donate to foundations because then they can target their projects, and there's ways that we can do that. So the amount of hours that have gone into this has been tremendous. A lot of good conversation with a lot of different groups. I'm getting a variety of feedback. I am going to send it out to the teachers in my update tomorrow, but I wanted to make sure you guys had this form. I kept saying I was going to send it to you. I didn't want to send you the same 7 pages of chaos because I was going crazy kind of with those pages until we had it in a nice, clear, concise format. Questions?
When do you want the feedback by? Do you have a timeline
I
that you're
would-
going with?
Yes, I'd like it within a week because I think what we need to do is, I would like to get this approved at the May meeting because I think we need to put this piece of it behind us so that we can start how we're going to roll it out, market it so that for next year we can hit it with the ground running. Like I said, we've had a lot of good conversation, and the involvement from people has been amazing. And the small groups was the best way to do it. I spent last Thursday and Friday with 4 different focus groups, and it's 6 or 7 people at each time, just talking about the plan, talking about the schools, giving input, and I think that was some very worthwhile use of my time versus trying to bring everybody together in a large group and then asking for feedback. I think we got some and I'm still getting follow-up feedback. So, anything else on this? I'm very proud of the work that's done. And I do have Bob Dyack and Deanne Dimitro coming in Thursday to meet with me too, to give me a few more tweaks and maybe have some ideas for how we can sort of highlight those cost items so that they're clear that we need money to support that. Other than that I think are the extent of my reports. I know Dave has a quick update.
Spring testing is well underway. The elementary schools, the middle school, Mr. Brady, are you pretty close to finished with
2 more dates left.
Okay.
Tomorrow and Friday.
Okay. And it's been, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my vantage point, it's been very smooth. Technology has worked very well. Yeah, really, I'm going to knock on some woods because it's been really a very smooth testing season so far. We begin at the high school tomorrow morning with English. And we'll be wrapping up with everything around mid-May. That's where we stand.
We're to a month almost to graduation and all the year-end activities, so it's going to be a busy finish.
What's graduation date?
The 21st. 21st, yeah.
Recommendations of the superintendent.
Okay. The first item is a motion to approve the agreement for technology personnel services between the Madison Local School District and Fairport Harbor Exempted Village School District for the period April 1st, 2016 through June 30th, 2017.
So moved.
Second?
Questions or comments?
Glad to see they're on board.
Okay, roll call.
Jacqueline Asbell,
Yes?
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
vote is 3-0.
All right, and then the second motion is quite a lengthy personnel motion tonight. You're asking for to accept the following resignation. Heather Rio as a Madison High School softball coach, effective April 4th, 2016. Entering into the following employment contracts to employ the persons for the positions at the rate and compensation. The substitute teachers is approved by the Lake County Educational Service Center and the Madison Local School District. Superintendent under a one-year limited substitute teacher contract for the 2015-16 school year, beginning with Chelsea Ashley and ending with David Petrovic. The following persons as casual day-to-day substitutes at the board-approved rate of compensation: Annette Feeney, Melissa Knight, and Laura Rexroth. To employ Pam Grinstead under a long-term substitute teacher contract from March 22nd, 2016 through May 6, 2016 to perform the duties of Gary Fortuna. To employ Brett Tomko as instrumental music teacher at Madison High School under a one-year limited contract effective 2016-2017 contract year at the rate of compensation of $42,690. Approve a supplemental limited contract for Robert Cerruti effective April 1st for the work to be performed under the agreement for technology personal services between the Madison Local School District and Fairport Harbor Exempted Village School District at a monthly amount of $1,250. To approve a limited supplemental contract for Anthony Slepko effective April 1st for the work to be performed under the agreement for the technology personal services between Madison and Fairport at a monthly amount of $750. To approve a supplemental limited contract for Ashley Medwig effective April 1st for the work to be performed under the agreement for technology personal services between Madison and Fairport at a monthly rate of $333.33. Approve a supplemental limited contract for Andrew Grivos effective April 1st, 2016, for the work to be performed under the agreement for technology personal services between Madison Local School District and Fairport Harbor at a monthly amount of $333.33. The following persons under a limited extended supplemental contract at the hourly rate and compensation of the 2015-16 contract years is listed below, beginning with Christine Redmond, coordinator, and ending with Don Clark, associate. The certificated persons listed in Appendix A as teachers, each under a one-year limited contract for the 2016-17 contract year. The certificated persons listed in Appendix B as teachers, each under a two-year limited contract for the 2016-2017 contract year. The board is authorizing annual salary notices to be sent as follows: to authorize and direct the treasurer to send an annual salary notice for the 2016-17 contract year by June 30th to all certificated instructional personnel currently employed under a continuing contract as listed in Appendix C, and authorize and direct the treasurer to include the FY16 appropriation sufficient amounts to meet the combined value of all salary notices issued under the authority of this motion. The board is issuing a continuing contract to the certified personnel who have met all the licensure, coursework, and service requirements, beginning with Melissa Argy and ending with Shannon Weber. And we are amending the following contract: a supplemental contract issued to Gabby Amato under Board Motion 3516 as MHS Assistant Varsity Softball Coach to reflect .07 years, zero experience for the 2015-16 school year.
So moved. That's all we got.
I will second.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbell,
Yes.
vote is 3-0.
All right, and then before I move on to the next motion, I do have to share, because our new band director, he is very, very excited. And so I wanted to share, because he emailed me this wonderful letter today Saying, "Dear Superintendent Smith and Board of Education, upon board approval, I'm happy to accept the Director of Advanced position for the Madison Local School District. I apologize for not being at this evening's meeting to meet all of you, but I have a final commitment to the Mason City Schools by conducting their annual middle school spring concert. I plan on attending the May 3rd Board of Education meeting, and I'm excited to meet all of you in person. Thank you for understanding about tonight. I look forward to a very strong yet fun musical future in Madison. Sincerely, Brett Tomko." And I thought that was just one of the many reasons why he emerged as the cream of the crop. And I have to applaud Dave, Fish, and Tom for their diligence in that process. How many hours went into this?
20?
Well, all people total, it was 75.
Oh, down the whole committee.
I
yeah.
did.
So
I was curious.
they were very, very diligent, and they made actually my job very easy when they brought the top 3 candidates. It was really fun to meet all 3, and you know, when you're able to give somebody basically a start and the passion and excitement he had. There was a quote by Abraham Lincoln, and it says, "I will study, and perhaps someday my chance will come." And that was at Central Howard, the very first school I taught at. And when I offered him the job, I said, "Do you know this quote?" And I read it to him, and I said, "Your chance has come." And it was so cool, you know. That's what you get in this business for. So, moving right into that, really, it goes right into declaring Teacher Appreciation Week in the school district. We look for your approval of the resolution supporting Teacher Appreciation Week, May 2nd to 6th in our district.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments?
I always love Teacher Appreciation Week when I have the little ones. I'm gonna make pancakes for the teachers.
Roll call, please.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbill,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
vote is 3-0.
All right, in the consent calendar, we have several items this evening. The first is to approve the program of studies for Madison High School for the 2016-2017 school year. To enter into an agreement between the Madison Local School District and Mentor Exempt Village School District to provide transportation services for a student attending Crossroads. To approve an agreement between the Madison Local Schools and School Point website development for development, implementation, and maintenance at a cost of $6,000 per year. To enter into an agreement between Madison Local Schools and Ashland University to provide off-campus field-based experiences related to teaching in the schools per the agreement found on file in the board office. To approve the latchkey program and all-day program registration fee of $10 per child and the following tuition fee for the latchkey program for the 2016-17 school year, $7.50 a day for the first child, $6 a day for each additional child, and to approve the 2016 summer latchkey program and all-day program fee of $20 per child with a minimum summer enrollment requirement of 3 days per week and a registration fee of $25 per child, plus a summer program activity fee of $20 per week per child, effective May 31st, 2016, and to approve an out-of-state field trip for the summer latchkey to Waldemere Park in Erie, Pennsylvania on August 5th, 2016.
So moved.
I'll second.
Questions or comments? I just want to say, that is a heck of a deal for latchkey, $7.50 a day for your kid. That's fantastic. Roll call.
Jacqueline Asbill,
Yes.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
vote is 3-0.
Okay, we're on to our second public participation. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the board, you can do so now. Please rise and state your name and address.
I have one of these and I'd be upset about it. I'm Melanie Stern. I'm at 1490 Old Mont in Madison. about Tim, we were talking about the drug program and everything. I remember having sat back in school, my high school, not saying when I graduated, but just something like that, and maybe for the seniors, they were trying to figure out how to implement it for the seniors. Just get the senior class to do something where they show, you know, maybe the paramedics arriving on scene, just basically doing a scene for the kids about the drugs aspect, basically what the SAD program went along with for our high school. So maybe something like that would be good for them, because they were trying to figure out what to do for the senior class. That would be a good way to do it. So that was pretty much it.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Fish.
SAD is sponsoring a mock crash next week. We have it every other year. It's the next
Yeah,
Friday.
so something like that would be
Yeah.
for the
We-
drug program too, for the seniors maybe.
Right, well, it's a drunk driving situation, you know.
Right.
Based on like prom or graduation, so if you're welcome to come to high school, it'll be next Friday.
So it was pretty much where, you know, trying to help out for, you know, trying to figure out what to do for the seniors on that end. So,
Anyone else? Okay, I want to let you know, if you're here for a class and you need to get your agenda signed, just come on up here when we're done, okay? And do we do have need for executive session, do we not?
Generally, under just number 4, which would be preparing for conducting. And I do have one, I think it's number 5. So,
Can I get a motion? Oh, I have to state why, right? Okay. Can I get a motion to go into executive session for preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees and matters required to be kept confidential by federal law, rules, or state statutes?
Now I will second.
All right. Oh, and we won't be making any decisions when we come back. Roll call.
Sean Douglas,
Yes.
Michelle Hayes,
Yes.
Jacqueline Asbill,
Yes.
opposed 3-0.
thank you.